John Mason here with Hartford legendary community activist Ned Coll. Ned's life was recently featured in Andrew Carl's book, Free the Beaches, the story of Ned Coll in the battle for America's most exclusive shoreline. We're here in Barkhamsted with Ned talking to the man himself who 45 years ago led the way to open some of America's most exclusive beaches. Ned, thanks for allowing me in your home. Ned, say a few words and talk about what you've been doing for the last few decades.
Well, basically, the book covers my work on the beaches. But what I'm into right now, and have been since Pentecost 1990, is my calling as a prophet. Simple as that. And that didn't really get into the book. It got into me being a devout Catholic and all that. And up to right now, today, it's clear to me that it's no longer just a thought. It's a fact that I am called to be a prophet. A prophet is without honor in his home area. So that's why one of the things I'd like to try to do is go down to New York City and get that nickname changed to God City from the Big Apple. Big Apple is a symbol of original sin. I first thought that, Trump was the real problem. That was in my mind. But my mind is, I don't think he is really. I think that most people think he is, but I don't. The real problem is greed in America.
Well, listen, we filmed you earlier this month, and we have those clips with us. Let's take a look. I think we talked about several topics that you'll explain about, and let's take a look at those right now.
My first question is your biggest satisfaction from the book coming out, and of course, that's The Beach Divide by Andrew Carl.
Well, I think he did a great job, and I think he did a very efficient job. In other words, some of his own warmth came across. Because he had to ask some real good questions of people, and also it's the type of thing, reading that type of thing that I'm going to savor that book a little bit, keep that in mind, and in my own life, and bring up my children. And that's an interesting scene right here, with that when I took on those drug dealers. For example, Carl, he tries to be as sensitive as he can to this woman, but I certainly wasn't, because she was the one who was the head, used the tenants association. I mean, that drug was wide open when I got up there, and I was angry about it. Not only because it was hurting the kids that I was trying to help, it was hurting the families, and naturally the kids would go into drugs unless it stopped.
When you look back on the 70s, when you first got involved in trying to get access to the beach for everybody, 45 years later, what's your view of that whole situation?
Well, one of the things I think, some people on those beaches, some white folks, when the state police were brought in and they're ready to tell us to put the kids back on the bus and go home and all that. Some people on that beach said, no, they can be our guests. And it took a lot of courage for people to say that, because some of them got a lot of flack from their own neighbors. A lot of what we're talking about is gut liberalism versus head liberalism. And head liberalism is, it's easy to intellectualize and say you're a liberal, but you're not going to go out of your own way to help other people. You're a liberal after things are okay for you, One thing I value in my career basically is, I think one thing that helped me out great is a high priority on courage. And I think I got that priority on courage from the courage I've seen that poor people have had to have over the years. And also, I got it from my Catholic religion. You basically have to understand what the incarnation means. And this means that God Almighty became human. And just even to try to comprehend that idea you really got to delve into it. And not only that, you could see why the Pharisees and the scribes so much were against Christ. Because they were the establishment, and they were the power. And he bucked all that, the very fact he was born in a stable. Well, one picture I got a lot of satisfaction is that of St. Ignatius Loyola, the founder of the Jesuits, and that picture's right over there. And one of the things that I think helps the Catholic Church a lot is that they have orders that are under a bishop, and they have orders that the bishop sort of leaves alone because they're accountable to their own superior. So you've had you think of the Franciscans, the Benedictines, and so many religious orders. How there has to be a great fellowship amongst them. And I often reflect also on what it was like to talk to Christ. Because when Christ the Trinity showed me what to do. And Christ had the most loving and kind voice I've ever heard. At the same time, you could tell that voice had steel in it too.
So the question is, have things improved in 45 years since you first were out there?
Yeah, I think one of the well, you have a black person in the United States, are you kidding? I think that's what Kennedy had so much in mind when I thought he was going to nominate somebody like Chris Dodd. But Kennedy, that family must have caught a hell of a lot of crap, boy.
Why?
Well, they were looked upon as turncoats by many whites. Here's his family standing up for blacks. Blacks were supposed to be used, and they were considered animals by a lot of people. I had a relative who was a city cop in Hartford, and he used to direct traffic in downtown Hartford and so forth. But he was the most racist guy I ever heard over at the house. And he was a good-looking guy, and that went to his head too. As you know, a prophet is not supposed to have any honor in his home territory, as it was taught. But looking back on it, I think I've done pretty good, considering, because I got my fellowship out of the people I was helping. They weren't just people I was helping; they were friends.
So my question is, when I say have things improved in the last 45 years that you worked to have access to the beach for all people, not only minorities, have things improved? Do you see a better world?
Well, the hardest thing in dealing with the beach question is the shortness of the seasons. In a place like New England, you have too much. then Labor Day, everybody clears out, and and people don't loosen up. I mean, plus New England, the roots in New England are cold roots. They're very hard. A lot of people in New England are very hard on themselves. They don't laugh. They don't enjoy life.
I know your mission isn't over, but to this point, at 78 years old,
Well, that's another thing. If you're religious, you realize that your age depends on when God calls you. And the main thing you better be ready all the time. But not to be thinking in terms of 70 or 80. It's how alive your spirit is. My mission is heaven. And the things of this world are just things that I take with a sense of prudence. Heaven is my goal, and the thing that makes you really think more about it is heaven. Is to study the scriptures and the Gospels about Christ, and also particularly to study St. Paul.
Yeah, why did you take this on, fighting for these people?
My father also worked in a post office, and he had good relations with black people. Plus, I think my father did, now as I look back, he did a lot of fighting for him. And my father, and they knew it. They said, Ned Coll will fight for you. And,
What did your dad do?
well, as my father fought for the underdog, I learned that from my dad. Plus, my cousin was the president of Ireland, Eamon de Valera, and I'm named after him. And but he would have been hung by the British, except that he was born in the United States. And my grandfather from Washington, Connecticut, went to President Wilson. And de Valera was saved, his life was saved by the fact that he was an American citizen.
So you did this, do you think, in honor of your dad too?
No,
Because he was fighting?
well,
or-
partly my dad. I think the main thing, my Jesuit education had an effect. My Fairfield education that taught what Christ was supposed to be. And at the same time, I had experiences at Fairfield where, a lot of people who came from areas like Brooklyn and so forth, they were Jesuit prep school, but a lot of them were basically, or a number of them were basically yuppies. But I found the people at Fairfield who took seriously their religion, you realize where they came from. They must have come from good parents.
you live here in Barkhamsted, so close to Winstead, where another icon, an activist, grew up, Ralph Nader. And his influence on you, or how you view him and his life, is there any parallels between your two lives?
We've never met, but obviously I have a respect for something how many lives you see. Plus the fact he took flack from people, had to take flack from the establishment, and I often say to myself, okay, if somebody like him can do it, so can I. You have to be willing. I guess the thing is, one expression I used to use a lot, John, sometime in this kind of work, you gotta be around people that know. And that means other activists who you can kid with and joke about. And because they know. Because it's just like a good priest knows what another good priest is about. So I don't know if I talked about it. It was called the Laughing Christ. and it talks about Christ's sense of humor and how he basically said, he told Peter, they're all going to sell him out. And then Peter, of course, denied it and all that, and then he went and did it.
Well, where's the humor in that?
Well, the humor in that is that Christ wasn't afraid to say to his own people, when the chips are down, you aren't going to be with them.
Do you feel like you've had support in your mission and what you've done in your life?
There is a fellowship among real good actors. See, the same sensitivity you have about whether somebody is a phony, and I can spot a phony pretty quick. And I don't usually say it much to them, just let it ride, and I can tell somebody who's for real quick too. One is they look at you. I think there's a lot of, like you're looking at me right now, that's good. You're looking. Your eyes are the windows of the soul. A lot of truth to them. The best way to scare somebody around Hartford is to say hello. Hello. And they're brought up with that. The insurance company says it has that effect. The whole emphasis is on play it safe, don't make any waves, and we'll take care of you. And that's why they have sayings like mother travelers. Mother travelers will take care of you. It will give you a maximum of security and a minimum of salary. But also you see I have a lot of respect for a true good union. Among a real good union, there is a fellowship among its members. There's not a union in one of the insurance companies in America, I think. The whole thing is not. I had one expression. I think I told John about it. So when Kennedy died, the following Monday, the Phoenix Mutual Insurance Company was going to open, and I was a junior executive in that insurance company, right? So just a young guy out of college. And the boss came into my office when the word came out that Kennedy was dead. And the boss was a former naval man by the name of Gordon Harper. And he was he was used to telling the people under him in the Navy orders, and they had to follow it. But he came in my office after Kennedy died, or was assassinated. Everybody in the insurance company, the workers, were crying. And this guy comes in my office and says, my boss, he says, and the Phoenix was supposed to open that Monday, the boat building in Hartford. He says, send out the telegram, he's dead. And that meant they had to cancel the opening, because that was the day of Kennedy's funeral.
What politician stands out in your mind as doing the most for Hartford or Connecticut?
Well, one politician who grew was Carbone. Because Carbone was very anti-black.
Nick Carbone.
Yeah, to start with. And then he started reading more, and he realized it wasn't the blacks, it wasn't the poor who were the problems. It was the establishment on top. And he read a lot about Saul Alinsky, I think.
Saul Alinsky, the Chicago activist?
Yeah. He learned a lot about him in his book, Rules for Radicals. And I think about the difference between me, say, Alinsky will point out how evil the people on top are. I don't feel that way. I feel, and it's really helped me, because if I felt everybody on the top was evil, I would become a cynic. Because I would become a cynic. And once you're a cynic, you don't have hope. And hope is the fuel of social action. But I know you're on the same wavelength as me, and you've also been able to handle adversity in your life. Also, I think of you a lot, John, when a lot of times when I'm eating, because I remember you saying to me with a grin one day, "Boy, do I love to eat." And food is a miracle in itself. I also find out when I'm alone, I gotta make it a point that you don't eat as much as you get older, but you better make sure you keep on eating and watch out for your health. And the whole thing, basically, I've just learned to live life with vibrance. You better live life. And the other saying that I forget, I'll go very contrary to a saying that you hear this saying, well, you only go around once. You know, you go around twice. But what most people don't have, I find that most people don't have any real knowledge of the Gospels. One of the things that, and of St. Paul.
So that was the Ned Coll from a few months ago, but the Ned Coll from today, November 10th, 2018, is feeling what? Is viewing life in what way?
Well, basically, it's essentially God activism and my calling as a prophet. The person who vouched best on this is Father Jacobs, who blessed the shrine.
And the shrine is
It's always
your home.
the house, the yard.
I mean, what can people get from this is what I'm asking. What do you want them to come here and do or see or feel?
Well, that's a matter of faith in the sense that I believe a miracle has happened to me, and I'm curious what will happen when people come out here and pray at a blessed shrine, or somebody who's recipient of having his house blessed. I think that there's possibility some real miracles will happen. I think it's a miracle that somebody walked 6,000 miles just like that.
In the 6,000 miles are when you walked that length of.
That was after I got my first operation on Pentecost, 1990. Well, now I saw visions in that apparition, and some of it's coming true. And some of my family is involved. My daughter's in Japan, and she's married to one of the most famous people in Japan, Kenji Azama, who's known for writing music. But also my son has went over to the Holy Land. With the whole purpose that we went to the Holy Land was I was brought up by a father who believed very much in ingratitude was the worst sin.
So that's a range of your views. What do you want to tell America or people today, people who still support you, who still feel that you have a cause in this fight to make things right, and tell them how you can get a hold of you. Where can they get a hold of you?
I want to come right out here.
Out here is in Barkhamsted, 7 Cedar Lane.
Blessed Catholic Shrine.
Barkham. And how about a phone number? Can you give them a phone number?
1-860-379-0567.
And I want to thank you for getting together with us today.
My pleasure.
Okay.